This just in. Could eating bananas be causing heart attacks? A new independent study shows that almost 95% of all Americans who suffer heart attacks purchase bananas on a monthly basis. Is this merely a coincidence? Or should we start running away from the bananas at the local supermarket? We'll have more for you after this. Now, what would you do if you heard this on the news? Most people would jump on their Facebook and Twitter accounts and start freaking out. And before the end of the day, the majority of the country would believe that bananas cause heart attacks and banana sales would plummet. Now, this is a simple example of what media networks could do for ratings. One survey online showed that 97% of all American families purchase bananas on a monthly basis. So they could draw the connection that around 95% of Americans with heart disease purchase bananas. And they could link these two. So although this seems ridiculous, it could happen. Now I'm here to tell you that about the dangers that media can have on society and why you shouldn't jump to conclusions before finding out all the facts. So to begin, for most Americans, media is the only way they find out about what's going on in the world. Since we live in one specific area, and we typically only travel for vacation or for pleasure trips, we only know the details of local media because we can find out other sources for facts. So for example, where I live, we have the local Sacramento TV network, multiple online sources, and the local newspaper to check facts. If a big news story comes out in another state about a crime, the only information we're going to find is going to be on the major news networks, and we'll find the information that they pick for us to hear. Now, since many of us like to stick to one main source for news information, whatever they say, we take it as fact. If you think about it, many of us wouldn't question what CNN, Fox News, CBS, or any of the other major news networks have to say. So this means that those networks have a lot of power in molding public opinions and can influence us the way that they want to. Most of us have seen media biases when it comes to the presidential elections. Media networks, they get paid to run advertisements for candidates, and they're usually one-sided. They point fingers and say, he said this and he said that. So if a person only watches one network that favors one more than the other, they will see positive ads for one candidate and negative for the other, and then they will decide who's good and bad. So in 2010, a newspaper published this title: Chicago Grandma Unapologetic After Shooting 12-Year-Old Boy. Anyone reading this headline would assume that the grandma shot this little kid for no reason and then didn't care. However, the rest of the report shows that a group of young boys, they were constantly harassing this lady. They were throwing bricks into her house and lighting parts of her house on fire. And on one occasion, she called the cops, and the cops didn't show up. So she fired a warning shot to scare these kids away, and the bullet struck one of the boys in the arm. So although this headline is true and accurate, it portrays one-sided version of the story, and it's really unfair. So there are a few things you can do to make sure that you find out all the facts before judging a news story too quickly. You can research multiple different sources. You can keep an open mind and make sure you finish reading the entire article before making a judgment. And you can find out the credibility of the sources. Now it's important to research multiple different sources because some sources may not be reliable. Once a news station hears a report, they will try to get the story out as quickly as possible, so they'll fill in the gaps and it might not be accurate. Keeping an open mind will allow you to see all the sides of the story before making a judgment, because once you come to a decision, it can be difficult to accept the other side of the story. The credibility of news media, it's important because anyone can hop online and write an article, and anyone can film themselves covering a story. You can think of it as going back to high school and dealing with rumors. If somebody tells you they heard something and you don't find out where they heard that from, you could be spreading false information and causing more of a problem. Now, most news articles online, they will state the references at the bottom of the page, so you can look at those and decide for yourself whether or not those are reliable. So, in conclusion, news media, they have a great influence on the public, and they must be straightforward with facts, or else it could cause panic and chaos. Now, news networks, they're the only source of information that most Americans have on what's going on in the world, so they take what they're told as facts. Now, remember to make sure to research multiple different sources. Keep an open mind while reading the entire article, not just a portion, and find out the credibility of a news station. Now, before I leave, just remember, it's okay to eat bananas.